R-U-L-E.
Yeah. We
Yeah,
getting it going?
baby. We live, baby.
We live.
What up, y'all? What's good? Welcome to the Chop Up Show. Y'all are Chop Nation. If you don't know your name, get familiar with who you are, because that's who we talking to. We, on the other hand, I speak for myself first and foremost. It's your girl, Toya G. Real good to be with y'all this evening. Real good to be back in the year 2026 with my dogs. I'm not by myself. In the black frame glasses, the ones with the outlines and your eyes poking through. Tell us who you are real quick. What's good?
Yeah, man. Consciously, shout out to everybody that's tuned in right now. Shout out to everybody that tuned in yesterday morning to the Research Over Me Search, man. I'm back with my best friends. You feel me? We're gonna be getting into a whole bunch of different conversations about, news, politics, and education.
That's it. And then we gotta go with the other one. Let me see. What did you have? You had your Chiefs hat on. What you got going on tonight?
Yeah, you already know.
Yes.
We're gonna hold it down regardless. We're gonna hold it down regardless.
Yeah.
So what's good? It's the political plug. The Chop Up Show is back. You know what I'm saying? We got Lee back with us. It's the start of a new year, even though it's already crazy. So we hate to kind of get things back started on such depressing shit, but it's the Chop Up, man.
It is what it is. Now, if y'all got manners, y'all come in here, you announce yourself, you say what's good in the chat. You can tell us where you coming in from, where you tapping in from. We want to know those types of things because we definitely try to do this coast to coast around the world. Last time we was together, I think we were all 50 states, like 26 countries, something crazy like that. So we are rebuilding Chop Nation in real time, and y'all are crucial to that. The last thing I'll say before we get started is that we need to go run up this TikTok real quick. So the Chop Up Show Pod. The Chop Up Show Pod at the Chop Up Show Pod. Drop that in the chat if you would, Max, real quick at the Chop Up Show Pod. We need y'all to go run the TikTok up real quick. We're gonna see some clips. We're gonna see some recaps. We're gonna be having different conversations individually, collectively on there. That's what we're gonna be. If y'all not on the Instagram, you should go ahead and do that. The Chop Up Show at the Chop Up Show at the Chop Up Show on Instagram, and then of course the YouTube. If y'all not over there, hit the bell at the Chop Up Show Pod. So y'all got all of that. It's either at the Chop Up Show or at the Chop Up Show Pod. You'll see us there. When you see it, click the check, click the bell, make sure y'all stay connected. That's all I got to say. Let's go ahead and get this rolling. Lee, what's good? What we talking about?
Man, a sad day in America. A lot of us are talking about the extra violent killing of Renee Good. The way that ICE responded to her, the way that her life was not preserved. I'm gonna start with a quote from Eton Thomas, man. This comes from his Instagram. White people waking up to the fact that the U.S. government can literally murder you in the street on live TV and then call you a terrorist and walk away to a promotion and bonus. Black people, of course, have known this all along. My question, visibility versus humanity, man. Is this a question of, this white woman's humanity being held high in the terms of the human hierarchy because there have been other people that ICE have been able to kill? Or is this about visibility? This is the first time we've been able to see somebody be murdered in this way on camera and we didn't see the other ones. How would y'all answer the question? Humanity versus visibility?
Plug, what you think?
I mean, I think it's a unique example of both in the sense that how much of your humanity that's recognized is dependent upon the type of human you are. And we talking about in this context, race. So, like, for example, a large part of the conversation has been about, especially amongst Black people, has been, a Black man was killed by an off-duty ICE agent, and it wasn't no outrage about it, right? People wasn't, jumping out the window and rallying and doing all this when this Black man was killed. Now, just to give it context and to be fair, we talking about a off-duty ICE agent involved in a conflict with his neighbor and a ICE operation or ICE functioning as a government institution and committing and taking somebody's life. And you know what I'm saying, as law enforcement, right? Like this is connected to police brutality. I've had these arguments with niggas repeatedly. ICE is another law enforcement agency. My criticism of police extends to that. You feel me? And so I believe that regardless of how these things take place, we should always have the same amount of outrage, same amount of frustration. But again, there's legitimate criticism about the fact that there was a Black man that was killed by an ICE agent. Because like that just mean that the fuck is happening with ICE when they get in this big bad and bold, where they just pulling out on niggas. Like You know what I'm saying? In ways that we don't typically hear about when it comes to U.S. citizens. But at the same time, even though that criticism is true, he deserved, you know what I'm saying, more attention, more spotlight. At the same time, though, every instance of extrajudicial killing, every instance of police or law enforcement violence should cause for outrage. You know what I'm saying? Like we should all be pissed about that anytime it happened, even though that criticism may be valid.
I gotta say, I mean, I agree, and I was gonna say both because I think it's complicated. And I had mentioned this before, and I'm gonna say it again. This is a year of two things being true at one time, right? And I think that's always been the case, but I think we have to become more accepting of that as critically mind people with, not smooth brains. We got grooves, we got, like complex minds, and brains that can fathom multiple things at one time. So here's why I think it's both a question of humanity and a question of visibility. On the side of humanity, I think there's a lot of questions about how much humanity is being given to this white queer woman for what has happened to her, especially in relationship to all of the Latina, all of the immigrant populations that have been affected by ICE raids up to this point, or ICE's presence up to this point. We finally have a moment where civility was suspended, right? The mayor goes up and is like, get the fuck out. Right now, we haven't heard an elected official get lost in the moment so much. We haven't seen them use such harsh language, speak so directly and so tersely about an issue that has been impacting people's grandmothers and grandfathers, the TOs and the Tias and the abuelitos and the abuelitas been getting jacked up, right? But all of a sudden, this white woman, this happens. And I think, of course, right, obviously we're tired and exasperated. Of course, it's probably that mayor's worst nightmare to have, again, something happen in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, because we can't forget, right? Yeah. Mayor Fry had just, Mayor Fry?
Right.
Had just dealt with, George Floyd just blocks away from where this happened, right? So you got this moment where the emotions are heightened and have been, right? But then all of a sudden, are we able to lose civil talk and civil discourse, or keeping that at the core and keeping the focus on the things until we get to her, right? Those are people's questions about, because rhetoric matters. Discourse shapes reality. How we talk about things very muchly paints and articulates the real world that people are living in. So even down to, harsh language being used in relationship with this, it's a question of, are we overly humanizing this person? Because, Black people get shot by, the cops. What they say in Belly, niggas get shot every day, B. But then we look at the other side, right? Where we talk about visibility, and everybody's a CSI detective. And so we have so many different angles, so many different videos, so many different screenshots and slow motion that people are dissecting to watch this moment, because people want, without a shadow of a doubt, to be able to say it was bad, it was wrong, it was messed up. When you have this Black man, right, who was killed in Northridge that we were just talking about in, I think, December 2025. We have what Damo talked about, a community,
New Year's Eve,
and we don't have video, right? So what was he doing? What was happening before it went off? What did he say? Well, what's his attitude? Well, what type of company he keep? What's happening at his house? And you know what I'm saying? It's a lot of speculation that gets to happen there. Where we got it in black and white. We got it in 4K, 1080p. Right, where we see this woman be killed, and there wasn't no cop in front of that car. So now the visibility component does put some teeth in the conversation, puts a little bass in all of our voices, because everybody is a forensic specialist now. We really chopping into these videos to see what's tea. You feel me?
And we can acknowledge the elephant in the room. All of us.
Real quickly, because we got to say this. You know what I'm saying? We got to say this brother name. The brother that we talking about was Keith Porter, that was killed in the New Year's Eve shooting.
Yes,
Keith Porter. He was 43 years old.
What's his name?
The context of the Keith Porter shooting is he was outside. We used to this. Like in Kansas City growing up, you heard gunshots.
Everywhere.
That's how niggas celebrated New Year's Eve. Like, they went outside. The first time I shot a gun was on New Year's Eve. But this ICE agent heard the gunfire while this brother Keith Porter was celebrating. I assumed that he was at war. I'm guessing, because he went outside prepped and armed and ready to challenge who was ever shooting. They exchanged words. The ICE agent alleges that Keith Porter pointed his gun at him, so he shot him. That's how that situation turned out. So, but again, it kind of speaks to how their minds are becoming more militarized. Like they're developing this inflated sense of ego about themselves that's putting them in these types of conflicts with people.
And to me, it's just about the status quo. The status quo is Black people and Native people and Indigenous people, or Black people and immigrants get killed by the police. White women don't. So a lot of our outrage is all of us being surprised that this white woman was not treated like a white woman by the law. All of us would argue that when it comes to social order and how the law is able to maintain social order, white women are the pinnacle of who should be protected, and we all can have our life or freedom taken away if we are even believed to be jeopardizing the safety of a white woman. So we all are seeing now that, you feel me, shit, that's not what it is, and we all seeing, well, damn, if you can get away with killing a white woman, what does this mean for us? Because we know, based off of history, you care much more about the positionality of a white woman than you care about any black person, any other native person, any, you know what I'm saying, immigrant person. So I feel like that's what we're thinking about. And I feel like that I came across this nice little post from Dr. Stacey Patton that I think that is very, very relevant. That's real quick. That I feel like if you're a white man listening to this, and too, you know, I got some white women that like to tap in with me. This is dedicated to y'all, typically on the Chop Up Show and on my channel, talking specifically to black people, about black people and the black experience. But this right here, white women should be paying very close attention to who is defending the killing of Renee Nicole Good and how confident and loudly they are doing it. The loudest, most aggressive justifications for a death are coming from white men, your husbands, boyfriends, brothers, fathers, uncles, sons, males that justify abortion. They are defending the right for the state to kill a woman if she's perceived as non-compliant. Right. When white men cheer or excuse the killing of a white mother, they're showing you exactly where you stand when power feels challenged. You are not protected. You are conditional. You are safe only as long as you submit, stay quiet, and stay deferential, and never obstruct authority. The moment you don't, when you protest, block, question, hesitate, or simply exist in the wrong place, you become expendable just like the rest of us. We've been trying to tell y'all this for centuries, and that's the reason why I started with that quote from Eton Thomas from his page, because that quote captured, I feel like, how niggas been, what we always say when it comes to oppression and elimination. We tried to warn y'all when they came for this, y'all ain't do nothing. We try to warn y'all when they say this, y'all ain't do nothing. Then they came for this, and when nobody left, and it's just like what we seeing when a white woman is being killed in 4K, we seeing it. If we would have already thought about the authority and responsibility and preservation of humanity in life before the police was killing white women, we wouldn't have got to this point. But,
no, hold on, but I gotta correct you though. Not we, y'all. If y'all would have recognized, because now the same rhetoric that they deployed against, and I've heard I've had these conversations personally. The same rhetoric that's being deployed to justify this white woman get shot is the same shit they've said about why they've shot niggas for years. I was scared. This white woman in this minivan who literally was going from a full stop to trying to get away was threatening my life. This white millennial lesbian was threatening me when she was accelerating at less than whatever percentage of a miles per hour. I was terrified. It's the same excuse. Now, the scary part about it is now we see that, hey, if they're now extending it to white women, that means it's gonna be easier for them to say it about niggas. If y'all scared of this, if this is a proper justification for a life-threatening situation for a police officer to engage in a way lethally, if it's justified in this instance, that make it easier to do what they do to niggas.
Yeah.
Hey, and Toy, can you do us a favor real fast? And Candace, while I'm gonna play this clip of Christy Known.
Yeah.
But can you look up this update after the clip plays? And I see people asking in the comment section that's coming from the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel. This right here was the first podcast I ever was a part of, the Chop Up Show. This is my brother, political plug, Damo. This is my sister Toya G. I was called her Toya. You know what I'm saying? We do this every Thursday night. We bringing it back. You know, instead of you seeing me by myself all the time, I want you to see me with other like-minded people. And in some instances, a little bit more articulate and a little bit more put together in some instances. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to like it. So,
but not always like-minded, because we ain't scared to disagree with no conscious leave.
Okay, we definitely going to have some disagreements. As a matter of fact, if y'all stay long enough to this episode, when we get to this other section, some disagreements are inevitable to happen.
Last thing I'm gonna say is shout out to old Chop Nation and new Chop Nation up in here. Dina, Tyler, I see y'all up in here. What's good with y'all? But also everybody else sliding in. Like, what's cracking? Every Thursday night we in here doing this right here. So make sure y'all pull up.
In a plug, before I play this video, can you do my audience a favor? And just in case, like, let's assume they don't know who Kristi Noem is or the position that she has, can you just give me like a quick dirty, you feel me, like 60-second, like who the hell is this white woman and what position that she hold? And then I'm gonna play the clip.
Yeah, so Kristi Noem is the head of the Department of Homeland Security, which is pretty much the umbrella institution within the government that's over law enforcement. She's known, I forget, let me see, she was the governor of, where was she the governor of? I think she was the governor, but she got famous by her name became big because she wrote in her book about her shooting her puppy, like putting the dog.
Puppy?
She bragged about it. Yeah, Kristi Noem bragged about killing her dog in her book. So that's how she kind of got more popularized and as a Trump sycophant. And
South Dakota.
Tyler in the comment section, Ice Barbie is what I've heard her refer to a lot. Ice Barbie.
She's been called. It was South Dakota. Yeah, so she was the governor in South Dakota.
South Dakota. Definitely a real Ice Barbie. You know what I'm saying? And I heard they be on the ice up there in North Dakota as well, man. Mm-hmm. Hey, and some too. If I play this clip, think about it though. For all us people of color thinking of watching this, if this white woman has been able to come to fame because she killed her puppy, think about how we believe our life is on the hierarchy when it comes to dogs. So if she already been able to ascend to fame with her killing a dog, you know that don't mean no good for them niggas, because you know a lot of white folks tend to care more about dogs than they care about Negroes.
Boy,
you know? But hey, this clip is brace yourselves. It might piss some of you off. Trigger warning. She has no regard for humanity.
You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons. This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism, because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained and told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations and then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety. And Americans deserve better.
Domestic terrorism.
To me, it's just imagine seeing your loved one shot in the face 3 times. They're scared for their life. They're trying to get away. And you have the homeland domestic terrorists.
Domestic terrorists, bro. And I think what's crazy is again, this logic of like criminalizing people to justify state violence. Like we're very familiar with that, but there's somebody who made a comment in the chat that was like, and I agree with them. We shouldn't desensationalize.
Be desensitized?
Nah.
What she say?
Yeah, desensationalize. Yeah.
You can't desensationalize this incident because Black people are unrepresented or misrepresented for 2 reasons. That was the whole point of Black Lives Matter movement, to say the Black Lives Matter just as much as the white lives. We have to treat the same wrongs the same as we would for our own. And everything I've read about Renee Good's bio, she was with it. 2, second point. That is how we this is how we get seen. When people of privilege lose the feeling that they're being protected for those incidents, that's what we have. And I agree. I think that the contrarian, why should we care this, that, and the other, is not, it does us a disservice. And to me, what Toya's talked about, you know what I'm saying? I heard this, I let Toya expand more on her point, but it's like, hey, if we starting on this from a question of humanity, we want y'all to see our humanity, then we're going to start at the question of a level of humanity. We start dealing with other folks. And it's just like, I'll let Toya handle that. You know what I'm saying? That's
the more so why should we care conversation is, you know, that I was talking about earlier is more so crafted toward part B of our conversation today. But in terms of this, I think why we should care about this is that there has to come a point where, regardless of the race of the person involved, like just the gaslighting has to fucking stop. Right. And I think that's what should piss us off the most is time after time after time, you have been comfortable with showing us videos like police footage, dash cam footage of you killing Black people and trying to force us to believe we didn't see what we didn't see. that our eyes were mistaking us. And now we have this white woman. We have the apex of who should be protected in this country, and we see it in 4,000K. And you again want to play in our face and tell us that it's not even a racial component of that. You're trying to call me dumb. You're trying to piss on me, and you're trying to tell me it's raining. You're trying to tell me it's the thunderstorm of our thunderstorms, and that we have to get tired at some point, regardless of the color of the victim, of people being willing to look you in your face and lie to you. And that is the scary, spooky part about Kristi Noem. That's the scary, weird, unfortunate part about a lot of the news that we get right now, is that these people are looking us in our face, telling us we're not seeing exactly what we're seeing, and that has to the nerve, the audacity. Right, I don't have to care what race you are to be pissed off that you're gonna look me in my face and tell me something that happened that actually absolutely happened. And on top of that, the way that laws have been set up in this country, you're not supposed to. We got the video and we see the man not getting ready, about to be hit. We see him just to the right of the left of the vehicle, shooting into the vehicle, nowhere in the front of it. So you have that, and then you have the law of the land be, listen, if somebody breaks into your house right now and you decide to shoot them as they running away on your front line, you're going to jail.
Swear to God.
You're going to jail.
Yeah.
Right. If they in the house, they in your stuff or whatever, and you pop them, you good. Castle doctrine, this, that, and the other. But everybody knows, and this has been translated to the law of the police or policing agencies, is that if somebody's fleeing, you become a public risk if you shoot at a group of people in a vehicle or somebody that driving away. So if this is supposed to be a legitimate, because they keep using this word, a legitimate law enforcement agency, then why is it they don't have the same orientation, the same decorum, the same application of that lady was moving away, leaving. Right. But you're so impulsive. And here's this the last thing I'll say, because I've been sitting on the mic for a second. As we were talking about white women and how uncomfortable they should be, because these are their aunts and they uncles and they daddies and they friends and they husbands. Before, when we were talking about domestic terrorism, in previous chop up shows from years ago, me and the plug, and maybe I think Lee, you might have still been around. We talked about the fact that these are the same white women who let their white son sit on the game and scream the N-word, R-E-R, into the headset. Right? These are saying y'all letting it fly. Y'all are literally breeding these people in their house. So if that was 2020, I want to say we were having those conversations. Those boys were 16.
Yeah, definitely.
Now they're about 2021. They about old enough to start doing things like joining ICE and linking up. So the same people who are out here terrorizing white women now, you bred them in your home. You never stopped them before when they was talking about wet back this and chink that and all these other slurs. And I apologize if I'm deploying them in a way that is not contextually appropriate. I'm just trying to make a point.
Yeah.
Look right, that you sit up there and you observe and you co-sign and you turn away from all of this very problematic violence, and then we act shocked and appalled when now ain't no fun when the rap got done.
Well, I'm thinking it the whole time in my head.
But look though, where I think we at with people that are confused by that message though, Toya, is some niggas don't understand that the crux of black issues is the denial of humanity. It's a question of the shit that black people go through is a question of humanity. And how the powers that be refuse to recognize it, or to what degrees they choose to recognize it. So when niggas is like, I've been accused of being like, yeah, I give a fuck about human rights. I get accused of being an all lives matter type nigga because I care about human rights. It's like, no, nigga, the reason why I care about human rights is because of the experience of blackness. Nigga, the shit that chattel slavery was a denial of humanity. The atrocities can only take place when you rob those people of what's considered human. Oh, this is the same as my property. Chattel.
Come on,
nigga. So in 2025, when we see like what we see from Kristi Noem, a denial of humanity, a denial of humanity based off of criminalization, who knows about that? So that means that even if it happened to somebody else, I'm still not gonna fuck with it because I don't like it when it happened to us, even though it happens to us more. White person, Mexican person, if somebody get killed by the police while they're turning away, this is the equivalent of getting shot in the back, right? I'm trying to get away. If that happens in any instance, because I've seen it happen so many times to niggas to us, I'm gonna have a problem with it regardless when it take place. It's that simple.
That not only that simple, just simplified. If we start talking about police getting power based off of the relationship that we had to the police as niggas, our ears should perk up. So anytime we see police exerting power, the justification of them exerting that power in that instance is going to justify them putting anti-black violence on us, because if you can do it over there, you're going to be able to do it over here. And I think that is the understanding that I feel like anytime we start talking about race and we start talking about anti-blackness and niggas start acting like contrarians, I start thinking like, do you understand how power works? If you understand how power works, you understand that this is it's levels to it, like Nick Mills said 15 years ago.
I also, it's not lost on me, and I think it cannot be lost in this conversation that ICE, especially when Black people are trying to figure out, like, where do I see myself in this? They were in Minnesota to do what? To eradicate the presence of Somali people who are Black.
White women kind of way.
African, from the continent. We've had conversations throughout this whole surge of ICE about the fact that Black people wouldn't be protected. We've already seen that in Chicago when they went to Black apartment complexes, threw Black people out on the street. We've also seen the insatiable appetite of ICE agents in terms of Kevin Porter in New York. We've also seen and under-discussed the presence of Afro-Latinos. Won't be the last time I talk about those beautiful people, right? Who are an extension of the diaspora, who are part of the same communities, right? You speak a little Spanish, you get caught up in a little loop, you go to a place where you're Latino part, you wrapped up in
foundational, Toya. They ain't foundational. They've been.
I mean, which ain't got nothing to do with me. But Blackness is wrapped up, tangled up, and tied up in all of this. So again, our brains are not smooth. They got grooves, they got ridges, they're complex, they're expansive, they're growing every moment. We've got to start thinking more intentionally and more targetedly about the scope and scale, the breadth and the depth of just how insidious the anti-Black, but also anti-human violence of ICE truly does go.
And J.D. Vance said that the ICE agents have impunity, and that he wants the investigation to stop. When we were talking about Project 2025, when we're talking about, getting automatic impunity when it comes to police officers being able to do what they want to do, that's what we're talking about right here. And for everybody that was beefing with me last year, because I said that Black people should be concerned with the mass deportation agenda, because anytime we start talking about funding the police, or we start talking about militarizing the police, Black bodies become magnetizing towards bullets. Niggas call me all type of crazy. What we see now, we see not only ICE going after Black communities, they making it where African Americans, foundational Black Americans, American descendants of slaves, whatever you want to call us, see that none of that matters when it comes to how they get to exert their violence. The idea now, we emancipated people, and because we emancipated people, we immune to violence. Nigga, us being emancipated ain't never stopped them folks from doing anything to us. So this right here too, think about this from a historical standpoint. When they teaching us about the 13 colonies, they teach us about them first 5 rights. You feel me? I remember like this. You feel me? Freedom of speech. Second Amendment. You know what I'm saying? Quarter surgeons 3rd. Teaching surgeon 5th. Right to shut up. Talk to the hand. Hey, to me, when it comes to this, I'm gonna play this clip. J.D. Vance, I believe, is calling into question, or actually, I believe J.D. Vance is contradicting the idea that conservatives are conserving the Constitution, because I believe, the unreasonable search and seizure and the harsh and unusual punishment is a part of the Constitution. So being able to murder somebody because you feel like they was fleeing, that's definitely not constitutional. And also, Dom, I want you to reply to this. But play this real fast. I set it up so smooth. I should have already had it queued up while I was talking while I was running that shit. But you, Damo, specifically.
Gotten 2.5 million illegal aliens out without any of the really big marquee things that we've been working on. That was just simple willpower and the president of the United States coming in and saying this is done. I think we're going to see those deportation numbers ramp up as we get more and more people online working for ICE, going door to door and making sure that if you're an illegal alien, you've got to get out of this country. And if you want to come back, apply through the proper channel.
Online, working for ICE. I wonder what that means. Knocking.
I mean, he's just saying bribing niggas with another $50,000 bonus just to, you know what I'm saying, to harass immigrants. Now, I mean, constitutionally, they can go door to door. People just got to be aware of be aware of their rights and be like, nigga, if you don't show up with ICE got to show up with a search warrant too. ICE can't just pull up and go anywhere. You can knock on whatever door you want. See, I would love to see blocks of ICE agents walking on down, like doing that walk of shame, because everybody that's opened the door is like, get the fuck off my doorstep. and ain't nothing they can do about it. That's the reality of it. We cannot take these people serious. You cannot take JD Vance serious because regardless of what he chooses to get on there and say on a podcast, because he was the same nigga who went on a podcast and say, yeah, we got to figure out this Epstein shit. Where he at now? You know what I'm saying? Who gives a fuck what JD Vance has to? At this point, I get he's a vice president, but these are the same people who just had a memorial for the Ashley Babbitt chick that got shot running up on the Capitol. These are the same. This is the same administration that gave pardons to people who openly, actively attacked police. Let's be for real here. Like,
I feel like
what they do best, bro. What they do best is propaganda. They are very good at getting up and saying shit that if you look at it with any type of constitutional microscope, it's not fucking functional. It's not possible.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Let me also, it's not lost on me too. I think it's worth mentioning that for conservatives to be so pro-police, the FBI is not allowing for the policing jurisdictions that exist in the state of Minnesota and in the city of Minneapolis to get anywhere near investigating this. So, of course, in a classic case of the police can only police, the super police, which is the FBI, I feel like can't no other police even let them know or make any inferences on what they're doing. So this is how jumbled the power grab is. This is how kind of convoluted the desire is to really make sure that there is no retribution, there is no correction, there is no indictment. By the way, we haven't said his name, and we're not going to overly say it because the woman who passed away, Renee Good, her name is so much more important. But I think the man's name is Jonathan Ross. Was the name of the ICE agent. So, you know, will help make you terrorize his life for the rest of it since he wants to walk around and do that in, you know, communities in Minneapolis. But it's crazy.
But
it's really
the last thing I'll say, and then Lee, we could
I finished it. I cap it out.
Yeah. Is that this is why elections matter though. You know what I'm saying? Because I put this video.
Here goes the liberal guys.
I mean, but again, though, what I mean when I say that is Kamala Harris couldn't have prevented this. This still could have happened under Kamala Harris. It's not likely because you wouldn't think that a Harris administration would have ICE just running up in random places. But let's say that there's a possibility that ICE, like that violence is still possible under Kamala Harris. The difference in having like a Harris administration versus a Trump administration in this context is really the landscape of how we can fight now. They're using the federal government to protect the federal government from this type of violence. Harris could be pressured to investigate this type of shit. There are politicians that could be pressured to investigate this type of shit. So we can't always think about elections from the standpoint of, well, this is what I'm trying to indict, so I can't vote for this person. But more so, if it's about challenging, like if it's who I gotta go up against when this type of shit happen, I would much rather have to go up against a Kamala Harris than go up against what we're seeing with the Trump administration, where like they can actively, a vice president has no problem saying our government killed somebody and that's okay. That's a much tougher enemy.
Absolutely.
That's a much tougher
and
enemy.
if you don't want to admit that, you're a fool and I can't talk politics with you. Real quick, Lee, before I give it to you, I just want to, because the question was asked about the Portland issue, I want to give an update on that. I'm about to read it and answer Donald's question. I think it calls in the question. I'm going to read it and then it's like, I end it because like, man. FBI Portland released a tweet that says FBI Portland is investigating an agent-involved shooting that happened at approximately 2:15 p.m. PST near the 1000 block of Main Street in Portland, involving Customs and Border Patrol agents, in which 2 individuals were wounded. This remains an active and ongoing investigation led by the FBI. Please follow this thread for updates regarding this matter. Let's read another. Responding officers located both a man and a woman suffering from apparent gunshot wounds. Authorities again confirmed to the local radio or news station that federal agents were involved. Both victims were transported to the hospital. Their conditions have not been publicly released, though the mayor of Portland said Thursday afternoon that to his knowledge, both individuals were still alive. A witness at the scene told KATU he saw the wounded man pull over in a vehicle and bleeding heavily. The Portland shooting occurred just one day after ICE had the incident in Minneapolis. The mayor called the incident deeply troubling and warned of the consequences of militarized federal operations. Quoted being said, "We cannot sit by while constitutional protections erode and bloodshed mounts." Wilson said Portland is not a training ground for the militarized agents. The full force threatened by the administration has deadly consequences. So, the state of Oregon is in uproar. Things are still developing everything. It was a man and a woman who were shot. Allegedly, they are still alive. More information is forthcoming, so y'all make sure y'all paying attention to wherever you get your news
Were
from.
they were they immigrants or were they
Look at that part.
unclear?
But
we got some more information.
Yeah, I'm reading from KATU another report. I don't know what time this one was. This is from 3:30 earlier today. When we talk about like the law and like knowing our rights, the one thing that has been for me that I've been going back and negotiating back and forth since Trump been in office is, what are the rights do I have really? And then how am I able to, enforce those rights, especially when you have ICE that's able to do what they're doing. This report right here says that the shooting was in that is according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The shooting was in self-defense when the driver of a vehicle of the agents had pulled over and tried to run them over. In a post on X, DHS said the passenger in the vehicle was from Venezuela and illegally in the United States and affiliated with the transnational Trendaruga prostitution ring. DHS said the person had also been involved in a shooting in Portland. Last I read right here, when the agents identified themselves to the vehicle occupants, the driver weaponized his vehicle and attempted to run over the law enforcement agents. Fearing for his life and safety, an agent fired a defensive shot and the driver drove off and the passenger fleeing the scene. What we know is that the credibility of DHS and the credibility of ICE and what they say happens is in the shitter right now. It's not legitimized. What we know, us as black people, anytime they say they have to do something out of fear, we understand this is how you cover for your ass, and that's how you're able to use the law to back you up. To me, when it comes to the thinking about, okay, so JD Vance can go to door to door and knock on the door and legally. Legally, you have rights, but it's like, to me, when you have an American citizen get shot in the face 3 times, I'm not even trying to come at you, but I'm really thinking, just being real. I'm like, I don't know how much rights I have and how much that mean in the face of this fascist violence. You feel me?
I hate that y'all put me in this position. I hate sounding like no. I hear you. I'm not saying you do it personally. I'm not saying you're doing it personally.
This rhetorically, just like, man, I give you more. To me, even there's more examples. There's more examples like this. They saying they going after criminals and it's about the law. We know that 95% of people they picked up ain't broke no law. We see that you was able to, legally, you should not be able to detain American citizens like they did in Chicago, bro. To me, it's like these black folks, they have rights, and their rights should have made it where they should not be held hostage outside of their house, zip tied in their drawers at 3 a.m. So I'm just thinking, like being real, thinking like, hey, who our rights? Hey, the Democrats gonna write us a strongly worded letter, a strongly worded tweet, or a nice, TikTok video condemning with words. What we doing? They're gonna do the same thing we doing. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's really thinking
I think so. On this question though, right?
People ain't mad enough.
I think there's a distinction. I think there's a distinction between two things, right? I think there's a distinction between like what gets popularized and what people pay more attention to, the tweets, the Instagram videos, the public statements, all of that. Then I think there's the court battles. There are legal cases where a lot of shit that this administration has tried to do has been stopped by the courts. Even with the Supreme Court being, locked up by conservatives and really bending to a lot of the shit that Trump wants, there's still court battles that this administration is losing. And like the what's his name, the Kilmar
Abrego Garcia.
Abrego Garcia. He here. They took him. He was gone. He was at the spot. Judge said bring him back. You know what I'm saying? And so that's not to say that that our savior is the system. You feel me? But and that's what I'm saying.
What are you trying to say then? Because
but we have to use those avenues. Like, and we have to
recognize we can't use them. I'm saying that what is the efficiency of using it? Because just seeing what we see, bro, it's just like
listen. If the weapon that we got to fight is slingshots, fuck it, we use the slingshots. Is it effective? No, but it's more effective than the tweets. It's more effective than the tweets. Let's be for real.
But I think the question, and this is the question that I continue to have, is just, do we have it in us as an electorate to last to November? Right? We made it to the 1st, and I was like, I think we're gonna be up in smoke before we even get to December 31. We've made it to a new year, but the constant nature, the ever perpetual nature of the just undoing, the unraveling, the pulling and yanking at the thread really makes me skeptical about what November is going to look like. I think it's going to be very hostile up to that point. There are a lot of special elections. Listen, I'm just expressing myself. And I believe when it's all said and done, you got to go to the box. You got to articulate yourself, make your presence. No, I believe that in my soul. But I go troubled. Right? This is where I'm going to put my HD hat on, because sometimes you got to do it scared. You got to do it unsure. Right? Whatever it is, you got to do it with a tear in your eye. Right? And so I just you still got to do it, but I still, two things can be true at one time. I said it. That is my motto and my mantra. I might get it tatted. I get stuff read on me real quick.
Yeah. Two things.
Right?
Yeah.
Write it.
Because here's the thing.
Come on.
Because the reality is, when you hear Trump say we got to win, the one thing where people give him credit is about his honesty, right? Like that's where niggas give him the most credit. That means that if you listen and know, you can hear what he's scared of. This nigga's like, we have to win, not because we need to do better for the American people.
They don't impeach me.
So they don't impeach my ass. He recognizes that there are things that I have done, there are things that I have attempted to do that can be considered impeachable. This shit could be considered impeachable. When I say this shit, I mean the Venezuela shit that we have.
To me, okay, so let's say right here. That applies to him and his authority. Right now, I'm thinking about us as everyday people. We have the right to defend our castle. A lot of us have protect castle doctrines and protect, stand your right laws in a whole bunch of different states. If you have a firearm in your home and unidentified individuals come to your home and you shoot them and they identified as ICE agents, you ain't gonna live to make it to court. They finna like that, finna Swiss cheese that house. So it's still thinking, hey, you told me I have the right for the Second Amendment, not to defend myself, not to go to go hunt, to stand up to a tyrannical government. Now you're acting tyrannical. But I also know that, hey, listen, if ICE come to my door and I live in Texas, to me, it's like, what rights do I really have? Because I'm thinking about everything you did. I see this white woman, I see black people. To me, it's like you can ambush somebody sitting outside of a courtroom. They doing it the right way. You can body slam them and give them bodily injury and make it where, to me, I don't know what rights I'm just being, and I'm.
But you should though.
I don't know how many rights I have.
Because I think when you say, like, for example, okay, y'all say, Second Amendment, right? But then we can see the outcome different. We're not necessarily talking about the right and the way it's protected under the Constitution. We're talking about the ways in which its rights have been racialized to where we may not get the full extent. You know what I'm saying? Like, have that recognized by individuals off break. That's the difference. We have the right. It's whether or not with the institutions that we engage with actually respond to us in a way that respects and recognize those rights. Like, we citizens, and I hate the fact that y'all put me in this position to say these things, but it's like it's true, and there are avenues that we have to protect those rights. Like, the whole reason why civil rights law exists, the reason why you have civil rights attorneys, is because these are people who are dedicated to understanding the ways in which we can possibly use, and I say possibly, use the court system to push back, at least against the blatantly fucked up motherfucker, like the blatantly fucked up people like Donald Trump. We get against them when it's blatant, and I think we've been so desensitized to like Trump just overstepping boundaries that we ignore all the ways in which it's like, no, nigga, you've pressed the boundaries, but there are certain things that it's kind of a gray area. Like Venezuela is a gray area, and what he does with the executive branch is a gray area. And when you have these gray areas, the supremacy clause in the Constitution gives federal government leeway in a lot of these places. On top of the fact that it's a lot of conservatives that kind of is like that refuse not to push back where they could. You feel me? And so I get that has made a lot of institutional efforts disheartening, but
I think this flows right into the conversation.
Those efforts should still exist.
I think what I'm about to say flows right into the conversation very, very well, because we're about to have a conversation about imperialism. I think that this normalization of American citizens being violated for taking up their rights, it didn't start with Trump. For me, I think that a lot of this happened. I see your look, but a lot of this happened when we seen college students get their head beat in by American, you feel me, law enforcement for saying genocide is bad. When we start seeing professors and researchers lose their funding, lose their job because they said genocide is bad, that happened under a different administration. And I think that a lot of us sometimes forget that there were a lot of things that was already starting to be normalized that was egregious. That would have been obviously egregious on face value if it would have been Mango Mussolini and couch fucking Trump in office, couch fucking Vance in office, but it was Sleepy Joe and Kamala. So a lot of shit slid by, especially when going conversation right now. A lot of folks always ask, hey, why should we care about Palestine? We finna get in the conversation about American imperialism and about U.S. intervention, and we're gonna start connecting some dots, and we're gonna see how intersected, interconnected our money is. If I got a house and I got a full budget in my house and I only give my kids, you feel me, 20% of the budget, and I give 30% of the budget to somebody on another street, that obviously impact my household, obviously, because that's money that my kids ain't getting. That's when it comes to this Venezuela, Israel, Palestine, it's all go together. You feel me? Tied in. I heard that they said America's God is gas, oil, gas, oil, what was the D? And diamonds. Was it diamonds? Yeah, gas, oil, diamonds. You feel me? And it's just like, hey, why do we go to the Middle East? Because of oil. Why do we do Venezuela? Because of oil. What are we worried about with Venezuela? Chicken up with China and Russia. What are we what is Israel worried about? China and Russia. What are we having right now? We have all these multinational countries fighting with each other. So we see every way we turn, especially when it comes to the gas and the oil, it's all about power. And we understand that you can control the global distribution of the oil. You can control the, you know what I'm saying? You can be the global hegemon, the leadership, what I've been learning in policy debate. And when we getting into this, you know what I'm saying? James Monroe, President James Monroe, 1820s, the Monroe Doctrine. Yeah, I hope he's rolling over in his grave, and I like to piss on it if I got a chance. But you know, I don't know who topic this is. I feel like it flows very smoothly though into thinking about how this shit go together. And it's like, what is the law for real though? Because Maduro was said to be breaking some laws. He was a dictator. And we had to go get him. But Netanyahu a dictator that break laws, and we ain't going to get him. So how do we pick and choose which dictators we're going to be an ally with and which dictators we're going to throw the war on drugs on? Which dictator gets to be an ally, you know what I'm saying, and which dictator gets to be a narco-terrorist? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, that's the...
Talk to us, Lee. Talk to us, Plug.
Nah, well, all right. So what to those watching, I'm sure all y'all know what George's talking about is the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, him being transferred in his Nike Tech to the United States to face federal charges. Because I don't know who threw that on him, or if he was just walking around mobbing in that hole, but he was fresh in the with the blindfolds on and his federal transport. But in most cases, and I get what you're talking about, George, because in most cases, when you even when it's an international criminal, there's typically an extradition treaty, right? So like, because they're saying that Maduro, what he's doing is, and this is where they kind of, you know, double dipping, is because they're saying that he's a cartel criminal, right? So they're getting them for crimes that are happening in the United States, but they're also saying that he's a narco terrorist, or he aids narco terrorists, so it's actually a threat to domestic safety, right? Which is what they use to justify that Call of Duty type strike to get him up out of there. Now, what people don't talk about enough is that getting him up out of there killed 40 people. Mm-hmm. Getting like 40 people that was either just a part of the government, was bodyguards to him or whatever. But yeah, that was like it was people uninvolved that got knocked off fucking with Trump. Just so we know this. Now, to what you talking about, George, it actually helps my point, because when you say they shouldn't have went up in there like that, especially without an extradition treaty, you know what I'm saying, especially without having any type of cooperation with anybody either within the government or having congressional authority, right? Because of a clear threat. Those are the only ways that should have went down. But we're about to watch the Trump administration fuck that up. They're going to they've already fucked up this indictment.
Hey, Street saying, by the way, between 80 and 100 people was killed.
Definitely. I'm about to say, yeah. I heard 100 people a lot. And I heard that how a bunch of military people talk about how they justify using the drones and how like they give you a point. So I heard dudes, I heard a few veterans saying like, yeah, when you do these type of operations, they'll give you a point, and that point equals human life. So you might get a score point of 10, meaning that if you find your target, you can hit your target and you can kill up to 10 people as long as you hit your target. So in this instance, you know what I'm saying, this is how American imperialism works. So in America, we'll be like all lives matter and thinking about the law, even thinking about international law. International law talk about collective punishment. You feel me? So there's no way, you know what I'm saying, international law, so you cannot collectively punish a community.
A community,
so
yeah.
You go after Maduro and you kill the community, that's collective punishment. So we see how even the law is like, hey, even in terms of international law, you supposed to be upholding international law, and you breaking international law to uphold it. How does that make sense?
But I mean, agreed, right? But here's the issue that we run into. Because again, once that violence already happened, like this is just kind of, this is the state, right? This is what imperial violence looks like. But when you have the type of administration where not the initial indictment that they actually came up with, where they called this nigga the leader of a cartel and everything else, came out that they had to do a completely new indictment because all of the major claims that they was making about him leading the cartel was completely fucking wrong. It was completely made up. The case is arguably already falling apart, not even addressing the constitutional issues. You know what I'm saying? That we get into further. But I think a bigger issue though is that more Black people don't understand why like this conversation is still relevant, because people fall into the like kind of what George is saying is just like, well, they just kind of doing what they want to do. But it's important to understand that though, because it mirrors a lot of the ways that they do what the fuck they want to do over here, right? And recognizing that means that we have to use the Venezuelan president. That sovereign shit fucks him over, because when NATO or whenever when the UN or when the people that's supposed to protect different countries and all that shit is like just letting America get away with the shit that they doing, that's because there is no avenue. There's no way. There is no other international body that's gonna check the United States. Like that's just what that is. You feel me? Hold on. I get that that's your point. We don't have to do that though here in the United States, because that same logic starts to fall apart is when we utilize what we can, when we shape the landscape in a way to be like the shit that y'all trying to do. You try like the invasion of property, the seizure of property that you was talking about. All of that shit, we have ways to challenge it. It may seem bleak, but for no reason should we think that because it's harder for us to utilize these things that we shouldn't think through ways to be able to be like, how can we get back at the Trump administration? What avenues can we use to undermine the shit that it is that they're trying to accomplish? And I think if we do the opposite, it only makes the situation worse. What we seeing in Minneapolis, and this is the connection between the two conversations. What we seeing in Minneapolis and what we seeing in Venezuela is literally the same logic. You use criminalization as a way to justify doing some bullshit. Oh, we was threatened by this domestic terrorist. Oh, we need to pull up on these narco terrorists. The logic is the same. You feel me? And if we don't recognize that we have to have an orientation that connects those two conversations, we continue to make the situation worse. Because I think that allowing Donald Trump to get elected because of the shit that we was pissed off about made a worse situation. I'll never say Kamala Harris would mean that Venezuela could be a free democracy or whatever else. But would it be this though? Would we be dealing with tensions with America and the rest of the fucking world where niggas is on the precipice of World War III because a motherfucker, because a nigga want to run up into Venezuela and violate all type of international standards? Would we be having that conversation?
Probably
I don't think we would. And so as much as we want to say, damn, what about our rights? What about the rights of people of Venezuela? We're like, look at them moving with impunity. The more that puts us in a position to not do shit, the more we pull back because of that type of rhetoric, the worse it gets. And I think we seeing the result of that right now.
Plug, I'm sorry, Lee, what's your, you scratching your chin? What's the thought? What's the thought process?
Multiple thoughts. The first thought is he just articulated my point that the logic of being able to do what you want to do is consistent regardless of the legal body, regardless of whether we're talking about the domestic law or international law. Is showing you that might is right. Your legal interpretations doesn't matter. Who has the biggest gun? Who got the nuclear bombs? Who got the nuclear power? Even in terms of Portland, might is right. Might is right. That's how reality gets pushed. You see what I'm saying? Even when you start thinking about Kamala Harris, I think that the law even didn't matter in that administration because we seen the type of loyalty that we would have with Netanyahu, regardless of how many laws he's breaking. So it's still the facetious rhetorical questions I was asking. How do we pick and choose which dictators we cozy up to and which one we call ally, which one we call? You see what I'm saying? So let me finish real fast. So if the Biden-Harris administration was able to be cool with a dictator named Netanyahu, and they was able to talk about how good international law is when it came to apprehending Putin, international warrant for Putin equals Putin should abide by international law. That's what the entire community said, the global community said. Oh, Netanyahu break international law. He get to come to America. You get to come to America and go to the White House and go to. So how do we mitigate? How can we be so sure that we would not still have the same American imperialist agenda, especially when your argument specifically at that time was, hey, Conscious George, nigga, you can't change American imperialism over one thing.
You can't. One candidate cannot change it.
Actually, not just you. Everybody's argument during Kamala Harris running was that how dare you try to say one individual can change American imperialism? I believe. Hold on. I believe what Trump did to Venezuela was the continuation of American imperialism, going all the way back to the 1800s of James Monroe. So when we talk about the Monroe Doctrine, all the way to the Panama Canal, all the way, nigga, this is American imperialism. And what we see and what we know. A lot of shit I'm talking about happened after the Geneva Conventions. It happened after the body called the International Court. It happened all of that. So going back, we have laws, we have rights. Who is we? And when you say we have the rights, what body gonna enforce them? You said yourself. For the chat listening, he said himself, America can do what the fuck it wants to do because can't nobody tell us nothing. So when it comes to America breaking laws, who is going to enforce or who's going to come and say, America, you can't break this law? You've already conceded what I know, what we all know watching this. Nobody. So it goes back to the original question. What laws or rights do we have?
That's why
America doing what we want to do. Listen, last thing I say, politically, socially, economically, if America has a desire to obliterate you, to steal from you, the law does not matter. Hey, collective punishment is against the law. We are talking about because you went and want to go abduct a dictator. You feel me? And what you call it? I'm saying dictator because y'all pick and choose how we do that. I ain't saying you, but them. Hey, you killed 100 people. That's like you broke a law. You know it don't matter though. So to me again, what does the law matter if the individuals with all the might has the right to always break it? It don't matter. So now, not do nothing. I just know when it comes to how we got here, these white folks didn't debate and theorize their way here. They blew up shit and killed folks in shotguns. And all I'm saying is when it comes to pushing back, we got to start coming up with something different. And I know if you're going to respond to this, you have to respond starting with talking about that law and about how you've already acknowledged that law can be discursively moved. However, might is right say.
Toya.
I'm here listening and letting you all kind of engage each other.
Gonna come because it's like, nah, we American imperialism. I think that I can go toe to toe with you on American imperialism.
I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it.
Real quick, because I don't do too much over engaging with the chat. We definitely love the chat, love the conversations, love the criticisms. For Black Righteous For, don't worry about me existing and participating my own way in this conversation. Just kind of be here and be involved, but. You know, I'm offering no damn thoughts because I'm willing to allow for my colleagues, my cohorts, my brothers to have a meaningful discussion and engage each other's main points. So you just sit there, contribute meaningfully, but don't worry about what I'm doing. We good. Amen. Welcome to Chop Nation. Carry on. You sound slow. I mean, you know, I'm not gonna go back and forth.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Let him troll. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. Like niggas is trying to act like niggas is really trying to act like that there isn't a real policy difference and a real impact when we dealing with the two parties. I know y'all hate to hear it. Hold on. I know y'all hate to hear it, but there is a such thing as lesser of two evils. There is a such thing as making a bad situation worse. There is a such thing as allowing for the type of feeling.
You too smart for this, bro. You too smart for this. You too smart to say that. You made a debate career off of whooping white folks' ass about the difference between soft power and hard power. So for you to sit here now and tell me the distinction between soft power and hard power and act like the end result is not imperial violence, is tomato, nigga. Tomato, potato.
But we're talking about. But that's my point.
And you're not being real.
The problem is on the question of where there's something that we can do. Right, when the question of what can be done, we can use what access we do have to create a landscape that is more amenable to the fight that we trying to have.
Okay,
that's real. I don't understand why like that doesn't have to. And I'll just say this to you, and then I'm gonna pass it. That doesn't have to refute the inevitability of the empire. It doesn't refute that at all. But if we have a way to shape that landscape, I would rather be on this panel talking shit about Kamala Harris and her neoliberal approach to how it is that she goes about immigration. How she goes about does it favor the empire?
Of course it does. That claim,
but neoliberalism is still. It's still when you understand what it is, it's a better fight than have to deal with the violent white nationalists. That violence makes it more difficult.
I'm hearing all of this, and there are two things I just kind of want to provide to the conversation. The first thing is this is a 51-49 split in the direction of Lee, and here's why. Listen. Hear me out, because
I know what you're saying.
Here's why I'm fighting so hard, because Plug is like, I already know you always choose Lee. That's his whole thing. Here's the struggle that I have. Had this been 3 years ago, if this had been, and I ain't even gonna lie, because we talked about like the inner workings of the state, because I hear TLDR, I think we're too far gone for the logic that you're using to make sense and to really shape any type of optimism, strong optimism I have about things. If this was a couple years ago, if this was Trump's first term before, for example, he got so many different judges appointed, right, who uphold and defend and allow for and justify and, have, packed the Supreme Court and different level judges. If this was a couple years ago where we hadn't already, by we, I mean the collective we, the electorate, messed up so many times in terms of smaller, more local elections, messed up so many times in terms of representatives and senators, and messed up so many times in terms of kind of letting too much rope play out there, then I would be like, yeah, the voting system, participating, check back. We have the ability. I would rather have this person, that person, whatever. But like realistically, how we're applying the logic of what voting does connects back to my second point, which is something I said earlier, which means I don't know if we can last that long. Right. So when we talk about the undoing of the United States reputation, right, as a passer of authoritarianism, as a person who kind of greenlights fascism both here and abroad, right, it really is kind of hard because we're slipping and losing a lot of our best relationships. Somebody gonna come through a back door and really have a reckoning with the United States that we can't come out of because so much has slipped that our legal processes can't go and grab. Right. This is why it's so damaging and so problematic. Like, yes, would we be having these same conversations with Kamala Harris in office? Would it be? But kind of, because she was a little bit too loosey-goosey with the positionality on, Palestine. There's a lot of green lighting. There's a lot of letting things go. There's a lot of human rights violations. There are a lot of things that we're not talking about that not only exist that we have to be critical of and mindful of because they are replications of what we see on a very close domestic stage, i.e. the conversation we started here with, but also because there are things to be lost and there are vulnerabilities to be created on a national stage. We've already talked about the fact that NATO was ready to go ahead and pack it up and go home. Right now, I will say this, and this is an important inference on what's going on with Venezuela, is that the Senate today moved to rein in presidential war powers. So to your point, I told you it was close. My nigga, you act like I just said you got pummeled. I said I'm conflicted. To your point, earlier today, in a significant bipartisan rebuke to the White House, the U.S. Senate has advanced a war powers resolution designed to limit President Trump's ability to conduct further military action against Venezuela without explicit congressional authorization. The vote allows the measure to proceed toward final passage. This marks a serious setback for the administration. 5 Republican senators joined every Democrat to open debate, signaling deep concern across party lines over unchecked executive war-making authority. Those Republicans include Murkowski from Alaska, Young from Indiana, Rand Paul from Kentucky, Susan Collins from Maine, and Josh Hawley from Missouri. While additional votes are still required before the resolution can become law, its intent is clear. Congress is asserting its constitutional authority and pushing back against unilateral military action. That's great.
Okay,
I just don't take as deep of a breath as I would have, and I'm bringing it full circle, and I'm going to shut up. 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, had there not been so many different loopholes and issues and like circumventions of shit at every different level of how this United States federal government is designed to work. So I can only breathe so heavy knowing that Senate went in, clocked it, and did their job, because now things go to the House. Now the man got to honor the word of what they're saying. If they say he can't do it, then he got to sign it. But he's reckless. He don't care. He got to average there. So all these political processes don't really move me in this moment the way they would have presidential cycles ago.
And I get that, but I think what we're ignoring is that this is a question of what's up?
Hey, camera looks so crisp. So the camera look. I'm pulling mine out on Thursday. This why he do that? It's what I'm saying right here. He didn't need any congressional power to do an active war on Nigeria. They already preempting, you know what I'm saying, a strike on Cuba, and they already trying to do Greenland. You telling me about the presidential authorization that Congress gives him does not mean anything when he's already telling what he's gonna do. My last topic was presidential war powers. Made it all the way to the semi-final presidential war powers. So we already know when it comes to what we learned about the law and that framework, he already is going against it. You feel me? He didn't have no legal authority to do any act of war he's done. He's been able to characterize that's not an act of war.
That's why I'm not
goes into like, hey, what does the law matter when it comes to saying, hey, I get to be the police officer of America, of the world, and you know what I'm saying? Shit, this me being the police of the world only matters, and the crimes only matter when I'm enforcing them. And if I'm breaking them, it don't matter. Even thinking about everything we've learned about Iraq, the shit we learned they done in Iraq, and if we would have had cameras, man, I seen them sodomizing Iraqi prisoners. You feel me? I seen them making them sing songs. I seen them putting makeup on them. I seen them doing all type of humiliating, dehumanizing things to them. That was
urinating on them. All pick a thing.
Even to me, even I'm bringing up this. So if you can bring up that the original indictment that he had got thrown out, but he's still being apprehended, that obviously show you that the indictment changing don't matter. You feel me? Second thing it show too is this. Even after they changed the indictment, they mind already made up what they're gonna do. While he was gone, I went and looked. What did President Biden say about Venezuela? This is a tweet for 2020. Trump talks tough on Venezuela, but admires thugs and dictators like Nicolas Maduro. As president, I will stand with Venezuelan people and for democracy. Well, all three of us know when it comes to American intervention, if they start throwing them two D words together, dictatorship and democracy, this is going to justify U.S. intervention for me to say, we going to give you freedom and stability and democracy at the expense of you giving me some resources. We're going to leave. You're going to have instability. We're going to blame your people for coming to asylum for us and saying they bringing their shit country ways to our country, making this shit. Whole time we got their shit. And it's like, this is the rinse and repeat cycle. So to me, it's thinking about right now, the whole globe is changing on America. For me, it's like, as an American, what do I think about how my tax dollars is being used, and how do I think I should move to influence these, you know what I'm saying, these policymakers that have the ultimate decision to be like, no authority, yes authority, right? Still thinking though in this framework of, okay, Okay, I see what y'all saying, but I know what y'all saying is what y'all do because what I know. Somebody saying the Kamala Harris said, I want to have the most lethal army in the world that do X, Y, and Z and do X, Y, and Z.
Right, but that's the but again,
hey,
that's the
American imperialism
empire.
is
We
like,
know, but again, who if we're challenging the over militarization of shit, who would you rather challenge? Donald Trump or Kamala Harris?
we agree on that.
Okay,
What
so
I'm telling you, I disagree on this. I'm going to be specific. What I disagree with you on is this huge distinction on imperialism when it comes to Democrats and Republicans. That's what I'm disagreeing with.
in terms of what that challenge looks like, there is a distinction. I mean, the place where I'm gonna give you
I would much rather try to tug on the consciousness of a Harris administration and say what you're doing is bad because she you feel me, believe has some heart up in there. You see what I'm saying? Donald Trump administration don't give a fuck about what my black ass want to say about anything, your black ass either, anybody. I'm conceding that. My pushback is the skepticism of saying, like, if Kamala Harris was in office, this imperial thing that happened in the interest of corporate interests of oil, witness like, no, that would have been probably still would happen.
I'm not saying that though. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen.
And that's my only pushback, bro. That's my only pushback. I want to be clear. I want to be clear, everybody, because this is where a bunch of me and a bunch of my fellow leftists deterred and disagree with. Hey, who do I want to fight and rally against? Who do I feel like I would get the most? You feel me? In the end, when it comes to going and fighting, I'm going to fight and rallying regardless. Regardless. I want to give me the Silk Prince. I want to fight against her. I don't want to fight against this motherfucker right here because he don't care. Give you that. To me, it's still those, like, the criticism of the left and the right being similar. I think when we start talking about international politics, that's where it's just like we got to concede that. Now, domestically, that's what we're getting into. What I will say, the Harris administration would have just kept the fascism inward just on Palestine, continue on pro-Palestinians, and probably not the immigrants. But the pro-Palestinians and all that shit would have still been seeing that fascism on the inside, which we all agree is imperialism on the outside. So it goes to how I start this rant and being passionate movement, thinking like, hey, a lot of shit that we now just coming to grips with, the same way we look at the white folks, like, hey, niggas been telling y'all this. It's a bunch of quote unquote insufferable leftists that's been like, nah, we've been telling y'all this. And that's really how, and not you specifically, because you a leftist too. I would call you a moderate.
I'm a black leftist though. I'm a black leftist, and I make that very specific distinction because everything about the left, like while all that shit matters, you know what I'm saying, is because of what black people experienced in this fucking country. Like you have nobody whose values should be more far left than the motherfuckers who've had the humanity flat out denied and continue to have it denied, even in the modern era. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like what we see with the way the niggas is criminalized. So, but I still think that a lot of that leftist rhetoric though, that nihilist understanding, it handicaps niggas because you go from saying, well, the empire is gonna be there either way. So what the fuck is the point? I mean, it's hard to motivate political engagement.
I agree with you. That's a bad conclusion. That's a bad, like, shit's fucked anyway. Then what do I do? It's
but we don't do enough of trying to bridge that gap. Like, we're Afro pessimists. We gained our political ideology off of social life and social death. You know what I mean? Like we've already came to grips with the worst of what it is that we dealing with. So it's like now this is about strategy. You know what I mean? And I feel like when the conversation becomes again about moral standards and we have to stop, it's like that ain't this though. If you're talking to me if you're having a conversation with me about political engagement, the shit that you're trying to quote unquote stop political engagement not gonna get you that. It's just not, and that's just the reality. There's not a vote. There's not a you know what I'm saying, a candidate. None of that niggas are gonna be able to be like, vote for them and it'll stop genocide. Vote for this person, it'll stop big oil. Vote for these three motherfuckers. Vote for this caucus. It don't function like that. It's the landscape. Who we have a unique opportunity to pick our enemy. Not I'm casting a ballot to support him. It's like, nah, this is who I'm trying to get in the ring with. Like that's the gap that we got to bridge in the context of the imperial violence, the genocide that come along with all of that shit, that is a lived reality of the empire. How can we navigate that? What do we have to do to mitigate how we experience that?
I don't know. I think what I hear when I hear that, and that is that we would be more comfortable, because a huge part of Donald Trump's shtick is, let me tell you how much of an asshole I'm being. Let me be very clear and very verbose and because I want my base to know that I'm keeping the main thing. The main thing is that I want to show you just how much of a shithole I'm actually being. Not the shithole countries. I want to show you that I can be the realest shithole in the building. And so it makes me think about Obama, right? And how he was able to do a lot of things. He was wearing mom jeans on fucking Ellen and singing, and we was eating it up. Right. And so during that whole time, we didn't know really to what extent he was being and extending his imperialism. Right. We saw George W. Bush do it in our face.
We knew.
Yes and no. Maybe by the second term. Right. But a lot of people would have been like, I would have preferred Obama, you know what I'm saying? But like, it was that secret imperialism, that shit on the hush. A lot of times we didn't really have a firm grip and grasp. And I still feel like the whole narrative of his, presidencies and all the bullshit he did internationally wasn't really exposed until way after he was out of office. So you might be like, I did. But it absolutely was not common knowledge. It wasn't something that we were, told about when it was opportunity to come vote for him at the second time. We were not being presented that information as a deterrent to voting from him by any stretch of the imagination. And so I still kind of end up folding back into this whole, imperialism, but by a sweeter, more quieter name. And I don't know that that's necessarily appetizing to me either. So when I prefer to, appeal to the empathies, this is all I'm saying is that I struggle with I would prefer to appeal to the empathies of this person versus that person, because we watching and shaking and high-fiving and reaching out to each other with a right hand, and the left hand you got your finger on the button. You know what I'm saying? And we just don't know the better because you're not the showman, the show person that Donald Trump attempts to be. Which is all the more insidious. Which could be all the more insidious, by the way.
I think that argument expired in 2016.
How so?
And the reason why is because now that we know it can be more insidious, because Obama, for example, could get a Nobel Peace Prize and be known as the drone strike president, right? He can be called a radical immigrant lover who opened the border, while at the same time be called the porter in chief, right? We know that now, though. So we can't keep saying that. The argument that, well, they're going to come and they're going to be more sweet, then that at this point, that shouldn't pacify us.
I don't think that deals with the primary point that I'm making, though, that you want to sit and have the capacity to reason with these very more empathetic appearing people, but all of that is smoke and mirrors from the convoluted agendas and the executions of those agendas that are necessitated and inherent to the office and to the position. So I just don't understand how you can say my argument is outdated when you're saying a woman just a couple months ago would have been just so much more sensitive when she looked us in the face and told us she didn't give a shit about Palestine.
You're making an assumption.
There's a lack of linearity in between that logic. So I'll let you elaborate. I just want to be clear that there's a non sequitur. That is an argumentative fallacy.
It's not though.
Let me explain why. Then it has to be true for him.
The reason why it's non sequitur, and the reason why is because you're making an assumption.
The reason why it's not a non sequitur. My argument is that it is a non sequitur.
No. The reason why it's not. The reason why it's not. Yeah, the reason why it's very relevant is because you're making an assumption about how we would respond to those lies. You're making an assumption that that when they show up now trying to sell that story, we would buy it the same way we bought it in the past. The demands have changed. We're not going to. There's no longer, now that we know that, you are the empire as well. You are corporate as well. Right? Now that we know this, it's not appealing to the empathies, it's challenging the contradictions. You're coming and talking to me about poor people in poverty, but you're giving all of these extras and all of these benefits to corporations. Let's have that conversation.
Sure. There's a contradiction. That would make a ton of sense to me. That would make a ton of sense to me if we were able to kind of detach the candidate from what the position and the office demands, but we're able to be a little predictive about how this game is going to go. So you can be under the illusion that we can hold people to task, but oftentimes the way the process works, you get into office, but before we really get to, this is what they campaign promises, right? We get told a lot of things. We've been sold the facade that, like, you know, you're open to being accountable, or that you want to be accountable to your electorate, or that you have this level of consciousness about, you know, how loose, flying loose people have been in the past, and you're not gonna run it that way. You're gonna be by the book, and you can inject a lot of promise and hope, but only after the campaign is finished do we actually get to be like, man, what the fuck? And then I guess the only corrective to that is 3 more years of this, and then we'll tell you, no, you can't come back at the end of year number 4. But by then it's too late. So again, how do you separate the imperialist and fascist foundations of the office of the presidency and attempt to persuade me that we can make any appeals before, during, or after the election process that will persuade or move somebody to move in a different direction than what the literal position was designed to necessitate? It doesn't get better. There isn't any more kind of fidelity to the process.
That's not true.
You just get better at doing your bullshit because that's what the position calls for.
Right, but okay, and I agree with that. And they're going to do the bullshit. They're going to do the bullshit, right?
Yeah. I'll be clear with that. But account for that though, Damo. That was what she just said though. Was everybody's argument for why you should not bring up what's going on across the pond during the election of 2024. Because the nature of the job is imperialism and genocide. You should not bring this to the foot of her because it's the nature of the job, y'all. Y'all being unfair. Y'all being unfair. Y'all doing it because
but it's not. But
nature of the job is imperialism.
That's not the orientation we should have. The y'all being unfair orientation isn't the one that we should have. The orientation that we should have is, like I said, they present a contradiction that we now have the capacity to call out. That we're now able to look at historically and say, I
do kind of agree. I do kind of think that to me, I think that is to me, it'd be like they said they don't give a fuck. So when they show me they don't give a fuck.
But they're not saying that they don't give a fuck.
No. I'm talking about Republicans. No. I'm talking about Republicans. When Republicans
their policy reflects that they don't give a fuck. Yes. The things that they do reflects they're not giving a fuck. And that much more reckless nature is more dangerous for us. Because while we're trying to fight, while we're trying to challenge this empire in these different ways, that again, allowing them to
hold on real fast though. Stay right real fast though. People watching. What he's saying right now is when you ask, why don't y'all go and protest the people on the right side as much as y'all do on the left side? The people on the right side already showed you and told you they don't give a fuck. So when y'all saying, why y'all going to the book tour? What Damo just said. It's easier to hold people. They say they do care. They say they want a big tent. They say they want a big tent that's going to be able to impact and take
you
everybody.
Don't have to believe it though. You don't. But
I don't have to believe it to be able to challenge it. And listen, I never believed it.
Starting with the possibility.
I'm agreeing with you. I want to be clear. I'm agreeing with your ass, nigga. I'm saying that this is the way that makes sense to me of how I'm able to deal with their ass. When you ask me in real life, consciously, how are you able to deal with them cricket motherfuckers over there, the Democrats? I'm able to do it because it's easy to hold. It's easy for me to hold you what you said. You said you care about this, but when you do this, it don't reflect you care. Donald Trump said he don't care about blacks. He don't care about gays. He don't care about Muslims. He said, okay, he said that. He aligned. He said he aligned, Hunter, and he came here to slay line.
So what conversation is it to have?
The conversation still is to have is how people are still able to be, because this is the lesser of evil. We don't have time to talk about this American imperialism. Or even right now, we have the ability to permute American imperialism because Trump is in office. But a lot of us, like myself, was chastised about when can you criticize imperialism in relationship to the Biden-Harris administration. It was never the time. Ain't the time now. Even now. You seen me last year get backlash. People lied on me and said I said things about Kamala Harris I didn't say. And they was mad because I said, so hold on. You said you couldn't criticize her during the election. Can't criticize it after the election. It sounds like you can't criticize. So even right now to me, it's like even this imperialism. It's like I ain't saying this to you. I'm not saying this to you. I'm talking about imperialism in general.
I get you.
A lot of conversations about imperialism get washed into being like we can't do nothing about it because that's American. That's the American legacy. So to me, this whole conversation go to how much does the law really matter? What can we really do? You feel me? And what does this mean, especially when you think about the distinctions between the Democrats and Republicans on an international level and domestic level? I'm pointing out the similarities on both. I'm showing you, hey, they were suppressing freedom of speech. They were taking jobs. They were deporting people because you said something about Israel they didn't like. They were already
the
doing
best point that y'all have on this.
Multiple things.
The best point the best point that folks have on this really is like shit like protesting, right? Because protesting was definitely criminalized under the Biden administration.
For sure. But it wasn't
so I recognize the shortcomings in some of these things, because like one, you would think like, all right, niggas would at least be able to allowed to kind of get loud and do what they do on college campuses, and then the Biden administration was like, fuck no. You know? Like, so I get that, and I don't think this is a clean argument, but that's why I've always said, and y'all have always heard me say this: politics is a dirty game. There are concessions. It's just like, nigga, if you go undercover, you know what I'm saying, as a dope dealer, you may have to do some shit that's illegal, even though you a cop. You know what I'm saying? Like, but there's a role that you playing, and as a part of that role,
like this too, bro.
You said what?
You know, I love you, Def. I do you like this, but a lot of the explanation you was giving me today is what you would call political theater. I don't even have to explain no more. Just keeping it stack with you. And it's like, to me, political theater matters, but it doesn't change its political theater. And that's really all I'm saying. Am I gonna go vote? Yeah.
You ain't no Jay Reed.
I'm just being like, hey, bro, I'm calling the thing a thing, and you telling me that the thing is still a thing, though. It's like, hey, political theater is still political theater. So when we start talking about the difference between soft power and hard power, that's political theater. You feel me? Hey, listen, if I'm still gonna beat your ass at the end of the day, me smiling with beating your ass or me frowning beating your ass, it's like, you feel me? And this right here, I'm not saying this domestically. I'm saying internationally. But we all agree, though. All of us in America right now. I think I can end this and let it turn up in them. That's what I'm gonna say. I can even, you know what I'm saying? I want to get this out of my chest. All of us will be seeing in America right now is the way that a bunch of people in the global community have been dealing with how our tax dollars and how American imperialism been exerted for decades, for centuries. What we dealing with right now is how Muhammad in Gaza, how, you feel me, Esmeralda down there in South America, and how Buddy Name over there in Afghanistan, they already been dealing with what we dealing with right now. The way that ICE was able to shoot that girl, shoot this woman and get away with it, that's what they was dealing with in Kuwait. That was they was dealing with in all the South American countries. So when we talk about the idea of imperialism being a globe, but being abroad, and fascism being nothing but imperialism turned on the inside, that's what we're dealing with. Everything we see right now is what our government did in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Iran, shit, the Koreas, a bunch of countries in South America. And it's just, that's the reality that we living in. Our global community is closing in. They say the internet made the world much smaller, and we seeing now how a bunch of people throughout the global community been dealing with a lot of the violence that we put. And it's just something that we got to really just sit with. The last thing I say is this. When we think about what Tupac said, we got money for wars, but can't feed the poor. Every time you think about how one of your cousins that's just trying to get some free college in the Charger is getting sent to Venezuela or being sent to somewhere to defend your freedom over there, you got to ask yourself, how did my freedom get over there? How did they get over there? How did they get over there? Why are they defending over there? Everything that's trying to threaten my freedom is here. The police is here. That's who threatened my freedom. You know what I'm saying? The person that's trying to kill me is here. They're not over there. So we start to get into American imperialism and how a lot of us justify with ideas of freedom, of democracy, of stability, of humanity. The reason why a lot of people is cheering what happened to Maduro is because you believe him as being a dictator, and America is the dictator killers. Even though Donald Trump has bragged about being a dictator, like he's literally bragged about being a dictator.
He's tight with dictators. He admires dictators.
Mm-hmm. At the same time, he's folded in the democracy, anti-democratic, anti-dictator, you know what I'm saying, rhetoric to justify what he's doing. At the same time, he goes into dictators like Putin and Netanyahu. So all I'm saying is, if you hear him, to make sure it's clear, I'm not saying in my criticism to do nothing. I'm not saying in my criticisms that politics don't matter or the laws don't matter. What I am saying is, how much rights do you really have? I'm asking that question. It's a legitimate question. What I am asking you is, what can the law really stop? and permit? These are real questions. You feel me? When I go outside and somebody try to violate me, of course I'm going to exert the liberties and the rights that I think that I have. But I can be real and say that I think that I have.
Here's my last thought about the conversation.
You want to go full screen to you? You want to
do I, doesn't really matter. Here are my thoughts about our takeaways from this. If you have listened to this conversation, you like, I thought these were Black leftists. Why are they seeming so incessantly kind of invested in this conversation about Venezuela? You should always look at international issues as Black people and be like, can any Black people be implicated in this? Because the answer is always probably going to be yes, because the diaspora is expansive. There is a such thing as Afro-Venezuelans. As a matter of fact, 1 in 10 Venezuelans have West African, by the way, blood in them. Why do we know this? Well, history tells us that the transatlantic slave trade didn't just make a beeline to the United States. It went around the long way. It made a bunch of different stops through the Caribbean and through South America and places like Venezuela. So when we look at the role that chattel slavery played, right, we can see that they used to do things like pearl mining. They were involved in the cacao trade. They were involved in sugar plantations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They had huge slave revolts. But of course, we don't just, liberate ourselves or become liberated and then the negative anti-Black history and the residue from that violence just disappeared. No, it remained consistent. It remained intact, which made it hard for Afro-Venezuelans to gain equal social status with their lighter counterparts. So what happens there? Well, probably some of the similar things that happen here. When you are disproportionately prejudiced against or discriminated against, when anti-Black violence exists, you don't get the same access to resources, to the same access of livelihood. 9 times out of 10, you end up having to, pivot into a life of crime. So when we think about the same cousins and uncles and people we have in the United States who have had to navigate the system, how they navigated because of a history and a legacy of anti-Black violence, the same things are true in Venezuela. So people who are participating in the drug game, not that we glorify, people who, make their communities more vulnerable, but we're talking about the same Black experience or a similar and adjacent Black experience in Venezuela that we see here. Now, if 1 in 10 Venezuelans are Afro-Venezuelan and have West African blood in them, we can probably assume that one of those 80 to 100 people who were civilians who were negatively impacted by the United States attacks were probably people who had blood in their bodies. We can also probably safely assume that the people in the cartels that they want to seek out, probably some niggas, probably some Black folks, probably some people who have a direct connection with the similar or the same experience of degradation, of struggle, of strife, of people who end up having to lean into crime. And because they are forced to lean into crime, are automatically de facto criminalized. So there are some triangulations. Right, there are some relationships, some adjacencies. So just in case you become very invested in tapping out of conversations because they're not about the American experience, they're not really close to things that you identify with, you ain't never heard of some of these people, do not mean that, especially if you love your people, that this is an opportunity to disconnect from the diaspora. Take the time to do the research to figure out and make connections, because there are 3 million Afro-Venezuelans walking around that country right now. Just how expansive is anti-Black violence really reaching? Because if you really care, you'll care about it, whether it's down the street and around the corner or it's across the world. That's all I got to say.
Say that.
That was good.
Hell yeah.
All right. So check it out.
Boo. I'll play.
I seen Paris in the comments, by the way. I seen Tokyo in the comments. I seen people all across the United States in the building. So thank y'all for rocking with us this late. We know the show is at the end of the day, but we got families, lives, responsibilities. So we really just thank y'all for popping in with us. Yeah. Look, you got it. You get the last
word. Up next Thursday too.
Yeah. So check it out. The reason why I keep having to stress that elections have consequences is because when we make the argument that over focuses on the fact that the empire is inevitable, then it leads to inaction. It can be crippling. It can put us in a position where we become apathetic about understanding the nuances and the uniqueness of the structures that we exist in because we feel helpless. We got to bridge that gap. We got to go from feeling helpless because the things we see we don't like to understanding what we can do to shape the terrain that we challenge these things that we don't like. And that's where we need to focus the voting conversation. I think the moral conversation about the U.S. empire is good and it needs to happen. But when we're talking about political engagement, we're talking about a dirty game. We're talking about involving ourselves within and operating within the very empire that we are critical of. And so when we point out that it's two wings of the same bird, it's two sides of the same coin, when we point that out, we have to bridge the gap from being disappointed, for being dejected, for being desensitized to the impact of that being the two sides of the same coin, to recognizing how we can flip that coin in a way that's strategic, not saves us or any of that other shit, but strategic for us to be able to challenge what it is that we're trying to challenge. I appreciate the understanding of the inevitability of our situation, but where I find fault with a lot of leftists, especially a lot of online leftists, and what I think is extremely performative, is the rhetoric that pulls us away from being active and being involved and understanding what our rights are and how we can go about defending those rights, even within the very anti-Black institutions that are responsible for that infringement.
Okay.
Listen, folks, I'll close it the same way. We are excited to be hanging out with y'all every Thursday night. Make sure y'all stay connected. Make sure you follow us every single place you possibly can so you know what's good. Lee, what you think?
I think that's amazing. I actually want to lead the people with a nice little 3-minute video. We can bail out, you know what I'm saying? But I think this video a cool way to end it, to I think bring all our points together. Even you, Damo, I'm playing. But shout out to Natalie, man. She is a cooker, you know what I'm saying? She if you don't know who this is, Natalie by nature, Middle Eastern woman that does a lot of great content, American. I'm finna play it. Listen to the words.
1 second.
Venezuelans are celebrating. It's only leftists and liberals that are.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, since we're leaving out of that note, on that note, Happy New Year again. Goodbye, good night. Listen to Natalie quick. We'll be back again next week, but you should definitely follow us all over the place. That way you can stay connected. Now, sorry, I didn't mean to cut off the video. I just wanted I made them speak to us when they came in, like, you know, manners and stuff like that. So I wanted to tell them this is the top nation. This is a family. It's the unity. It's a union right here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so on behalf of myself, on behalf of the plug, on behalf of Consciously, good night to y'all. Check this young lady out, about to drop some knowledge on us, and we'll be back again next week.
Oh my God, Venezuelans are celebrating. It's only leftists and liberals that are upset that Maduro was captured. I would like to kindly jog everyone's memory because I know how forgetful we can be when it comes to history. So the year is 2003. And Iraqis are celebrating because they hate Saddam Hussein. So they welcome U.S. invasion. They are in the streets celebrating.
People were just in pure exhilaration. At that point in time, you think this might just work. And I remember seeing a guy was carrying a huge couch on his back. And he turns and says, "Yay, America."
The U.S. invades Iraq under the pretense that Saddam Hussein is harboring nuclear weapons, which, by the way, they never find. And between the years of 2003 to 2011, America kills over 1 million Iraqi people. The country becomes a failed state. And if you speak to Iraqis today, they will tell you how they have deep resentment towards the United States. The country that they once welcomed becomes the country that they deeply hate and resent, and rightfully so. Soon as the U.S. leaves Iraq, the country then goes into the hands of ISIS, the terrorist organization. You see, it's very easy to start a war. It's very easy to take out a dictator. It's very easy to bring down a regime. These are things that I will never argue that America is not good at. America is great at these things, but it's incredibly difficult to end a war. It's incredibly difficult to establish a new government that brings stability to a nation. To install a new government, to bring stability to a nation, you have to create infrastructure, roads, school, hospitals. That costs money. And America is not in the business of charity, okay? America spent $2.7 trillion in Iraq, U.S. taxpayer dollars. Where did that money go? Private military contractors. So when people are like, Venezuelans are celebrating, why can't you just be happy for them? My response isn't, oh, I must be wrong. My response is, I have seen this before. I don't just remember history, I lived through this history. And you can't say that we as Americans don't get to have an opinion on what happens in Venezuela when it's going to be our tax dollars that goes into creating violence and instability in Venezuela. Just like that $2.7 trillion that went to creating instability in Iraq was US taxpayer dollars. The last thing I want to say is that despite being critical of many different governments, I do not ever call for regime change in Iran, China, Saudi Arabia, Cuba, etc., because I don't have to deal with the consequences of what that would look like. That would be the total collapse of a system. Do you understand what I mean? Industries would collapse, currency would collapse, instability would immediately take over. I don't know how people feel so comfortable talking about regime change. Even if you live in diaspora, you don't have the right to call for regime change. And I wish people would be more sensitive to that.